Don't pretend you didn't know exactly what you were doing. My mother yelled into the phone, her voice so loud that I had to hold it away from my ear. We're family. You can't just abandon us because your feelings were hurt. I sat in my office, watching the April rain pour against the windows of my townhouse, feeling a confusing mixture of numbness and anger. Everything I believed about my family had shattered in an instant. Thanks to a single text message my brother Aaron had accidentally sent to our family group chat, instead of the private one with our parents. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. I'm Emily Clark, 35 years old, and until yesterday, I thought I was just being a good daughter by supporting my parents with their retirement costs. After building a successful consulting business from scratch post-college, I had started sending my parents extra money every month 5 years ago when the business really took off. They'd always struggled with money, and I wanted to make sure they could enjoy their retirement without worrying about basic needs. What I didn't know was how they truly saw me as their personal ATM. Aaron just sent another $4,500, my brother texted, followed by my dad's reply, LMAO, keep the cash coming. She's too naive to see we're taking advantage of her. My mom chimed in, just bought those golf clubs your father wanted. Emily would lose it if she knew her money was going to that instead of health bills. The screenshots kept coming, one after another. Years of discussions on how to manipulate me, how to exploit my emotions, how to get even more money from me. I couldn't breathe as I read each message. Aaron tried to delete them quickly, but it was too late. I'd seen everything. For years, they'd been laughing at my kindness, planning luxury vacations while claiming they couldn't afford their medications, upgrading their cars while saying they couldn't keep up with their heating bills. For the past day, my phone had been bombarded with calls and texts from my family. My dad insisted it was all just a joke. My mom said I was misinterpreting things. Aaron claimed he was just going along with it to stay in their good books, but their own words had revealed the harsh truth. The rain outside matched the turmoil inside me. I had been funding their comfortable retirement for years, thinking I was helping them get by. All the while, they had been enjoying themselves, mocking how easy it was to manipulate their naive, successful daughter. The betrayal hit deeper than I could have imagined. A sharp knock broke my train of thought. I walked to the door, still clutching my phone, and peered through the peephole. Aaron stood there, drenched, his face pleading. I felt a wave of tension. I wasn't ready for this conversation, but maybe it was time to hear him out. After all, I had my own words to say. Years of uncertainty suddenly became crystal clear. Before any doubt could settle in, I called into work, informing my assistant that I needed the day off to focus on something important. Emily Clark speaking, I answered when my phone rang 20 minutes later. Miss Clark, this is Samuel from Vermont Community Bank. I'm returning your call regarding closing an investment account. Thank you for getting back to me so quickly. I took a steadying breath. I need to close the supplemental retirement account I set up for Robert and Patricia Clark. I see. May I ask if there's an issue with the account? No issue with the account, I replied. Just a problem with the intended recipients. After confirming my identity and authority over the account, Samuel guided me through the process. Since I was the sole controller of the account, it had been set up as a gift, so I could close it without my parents' knowledge or consent. The $2,680 would be transferred back to my primary account within 3 business days. Is there anything else I can assist you with today, Miss Clark? Actually, yes, I replied. I'd like to cancel all recurring transfers to the joint account belonging to Robert and Patricia Clark. Those are currently set at $4,500 per month, correct? Correct, I said without hesitation. I'd like those stopped immediately. Step 1 complete. Next, I called my health insurance provider. This task was trickier. Mid-year changes to dependents required a qualifying life event, and discovering that my parents had been deceiving me wasn't exactly on their list. However, after explaining my situation to a kind representative named Miguel, he found a way to help. Since they have their own residence and you no longer provide more than 50% of their financial support, we can process this as a change in dependent status, he explained. They'll receive notification that they've been removed from your policy at the end of the month, giving them 30 days to find new coverage. That works, I said. Thanks for understanding. Family matters can be complex, Miguel replied kindly. I've been through something similar. Step 2 complete. The life insurance policy was the easiest adjustment. A quick online form removed my parents as beneficiaries and replaced them with a local children's charity. By noon, I had eliminated every financial connection to my family, except one. My brother Aaron's student loan, which I'd been paying for the past 3 years. He still had 2 years of payments left at $580 a month. That one gave me pause. Aaron had been involved in the deceit, but he also seemed genuinely remorseful. Had he been pressured by our parents, or was he only sorry because he got caught? My phone buzzed with a text from Aaron. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Dad says his prescription refill was denied at the pharmacy. What did you do? That answered my question. No apology, no understanding, just more pressure to send money. I responded, their consequences are no longer my problem. Immediately, my phone rang. I sent it to voicemail and instead opened my email, composing a formal letter to my parents and attaching the 12-page document I'd created the night before. I titled it Financial Support Provided 2018 to 2023. The email read, Robert and Patricia, attached is a comprehensive accounting of the financial support I have provided over the past 5 years, totaling $221,800. From my health insurance policy effective May 31st, to the retirement account that has now been closed. Your deceit has been documented with screenshots of your own messages showing how you systematically manipulated and deceived me while mocking my generosity. Do not contact me again unless it is to repay what you have taken under false pretenses. Emily Clark. I reviewed the message twice, attached the document, and clicked send. Step 3 complete. Then, I blocked their numbers on my phone, removed them from my social media, and sat back, exhausted but relieved. For the first time in years, my money was finally my own. 3 days of silence passed before they found a way around my blocks. At 8:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. While reviewing some client proposals, I looked through the peephole and saw my parents and Aaron standing on my porch, their faces filled with a mix of anger and panic. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called Megan. They're at my house, I whispered, hoping they wouldn't hear me. Don't let them in, Megan said firmly. If they don't leave, call the police for trespassing. That seems extreme. Trust me, Emily. Once they're inside, it'll be much harder to get them out, physically and emotionally. The doorbell rang again, followed by pounding. Emily, my father shouted. We know you're in there. You can't just cut us off without talking to us. I sent Aaron a text. I have nothing to say. Please leave or I'll call the police. Through the peephole, I watched as Aaron checked his phone. Aaron showed it to my parents, and then they had what seemed to be a heated discussion. My mother appeared to be crying, while my father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Eventually, they left, but not before my father shouted, You're going to regret this, Emily. We're family. You can't just abandon us. The irony of him using the word abandon wasn't lost on me. They had abandoned any semblance of love years ago, seeing me only as a resource to exploit. The next morning, the emails started. My mother wrote a long, guilt-laden message about my father's health deteriorating without his medication. My father sent a short, sharp message demanding that I stop my childish behavior immediately. Aaron pleaded that they couldn't afford their mortgage without my help. I forwarded each one to Megan without responding. 3 days later, I received a certified letter from my parents. Inside was a handwritten note from my mother. Emily, we don't understand why you're punishing us like this. Yes, we made some jokes in poor taste, but that's what families do. Your father's heart medication costs $450 a month without insurance. Our mortgage is due next week, and we can't cover it without your help. We might lose our condo. Is that what you want for your elderly parents? To be homeless? Please stop this cruelty and talk to us. I almost laughed at the elderly comment. They were both 65 and in good health. My father's golf game had never been better. According to the country club photos Aaron had accidentally included in one of those fateful screenshots. I called the pharmacy where my father filled his prescriptions, pretending to be my mother. "I'm calling about my husband Robert Clark's heart medication. What's the cost without insurance?" "Let me check," the pharmacist said after a moment. "It's $42 for a 30-day supply, Mrs. Clark, not $450. Another lie. That evening, Aaron showed up at my office as I was leaving. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled. "Emily, please," he said, stepping in front of me. "They're falling apart. Dad's talking about bankruptcy." "That's not my problem," I replied, trying to step around him. "How can you be so cold? They're our parents." "Are they?" I cut him off. "Real parents don't exploit their children. Real parents don't laugh behind their kids' backs about how stupid and gullible they are. They made mistakes, but no." I cut him off again. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What they did was calculated and cruel. For years, Aaron, years. The condo is going into foreclosure. They can't make the payments without you." I felt a brief pang of guilt, but then remembered a screenshot. "Just convinced Emily we're struggling with rent. Meanwhile, we're closing on the lake condo next week. Cheers." "They shouldn't have bought a place they couldn't afford," I said flatly. "What about Dad's medication? The prescription that costs $42, not $450. He can get a job at Walmart if he needs to cover that." Aaron's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I did my research. No more lies, Aaron." I walked past him to my car. "Tell them to look into government assistance programs. That's what they're there for." "Emily?" He called after me. "They're talking about moving in with me. I can't handle that." I turned back. "That sounds like a you problem, Aaron. Welcome to consequences." 2 weeks after cutting my family off, I was sitting in a therapy session I'd finally scheduled for myself. Dr. Bennett, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened as I recounted the entire difficult story. "Every day I swing between feeling strong and feeling horrible," I admitted. "Like yesterday, I found out from a mutual friend that my parents had to cancel their country club membership. I actually felt guilty about it for hours." "That's normal," Dr. Bennett said. "You're grieving the family you thought you had. That includes grieving the role you played as their supporter." "But they didn't deserve my support." "Both things can be true at once. They didn't deserve your support, and you can still feel loss about no longer providing it." I thought about that while Dr. Bennett continued. "The role of family provider clearly became part of your identity. Now you're redefining who you are without that role." I hadn't considered it that way, but she was right. For 5 years, I had tied my worth to being the successful daughter who could support her parents. Who was I now? As I was leaving my session, I received an unexpected call from my Uncle Jack, my father's brother, who lived across the country in Oregon. We weren't close, but I answered out of curiosity. "Emily, it's your Uncle Jack. I just got a strange call from your father asking if he and your mother could come live with us for a while. He said you'd cut them off financially and they were about to lose their home. Is that true?" I sighed. "It's complicated, Uncle Jack." "I figured. Your dad has always had a talent for selective." His tone was flat. "Want to explain your side?" So I did, telling him everything, from the screenshots to the lies about medical expenses. When I finished, there was a long pause. "I'm not surprised," he finally said. "Your father tried similar tricks with me years ago. It's why we aren't close. I refuse to fund his lifestyle." A wave of betrayal washed over me again. "Why didn't you warn me?" "Would you have believed me?" he replied. "They had you convinced they were struggling, and you were their hero. Sometimes, people have to learn the truth on their own." He was right. I wouldn't have believed him. "For what it's worth," he added, "I told your father I wouldn't take them in. I suggested they downsize and live within their means." Then he hung up. After we disconnected, I felt strangely validated. I wasn't crazy for cutting them off. I wasn't a terrible daughter. I was just the latest target of their manipulation, and I'd finally figured it out. That evening, I received a text from Aaron from a new number. "Mom and Dad are moving into my spare room next week. They're selling the condo. Dad's furious about it. I can't believe this is happening." I didn't respond. 3 days later, another text. "The condo is on the market. Dad's car got repossessed yesterday. This is getting really bad. I almost texted back, almost asked if they needed help with moving costs, but then I remembered a screenshot where Aaron had written, Emily just asked if Dad was doing okay after his doctor's appointment for the heart issue that doesn't exist. They made their choices. Now they were living with the consequences. Week 3 brought an email from a name I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Message from your parents. Apparently, they enlisted a family friend to reach out since I had blocked them everywhere. The email detailed how they had been forced to sell most of their furniture, how my father's health was deteriorating due to stress, and how they had to apply for food stamps, something my proud father found humiliating. The email concluded, They just want a chance to talk to you, to explain and apologize. I thought about it for all of 5 seconds before hitting delete. Their idea of an apology would be whatever they thought might turn the money faucet back on. I was done being manipulated, done being their ATM. For the first time in years, my money was going toward my future, not their fake emergencies. The guilt faded, replaced by something unexpected. Freedom. 6 months after cutting off all contact, I returned home from a business trip to find my parents sitting on my porch steps. My father had lost weight, and my mother's well-kept highlights had grown out, revealing gray roots. They wore clothes I didn't recognize, cheaper looking than their usual attire. My first instinct was to turn around and drive away, but Dr. Bennett and I had discussed this possibility in therapy. I was stronger now. I could face them without being manipulated. I parked in the driveway and approached slowly, my heart pounding. What are you doing here? I asked. Emily. My mother's voice cracked. Please, we just want to talk. We've learned our lesson. My father added, These past months have been hell. I unlocked my door. You have 5 minutes. Inside, they awkwardly sat on my couch while I stood, arms crossed. We're sorry, my mother began. We never should have taken advantage of your generosity. My father nodded. We've lost everything, the condo, the car, our savings. We had to move in with Aaron, and his place is so small. Your mother has to sleep on a pull-out couch. The country club revoked our membership, my mother added. All our friends there, they don't call anymore. My medication costs have been terrible without your insurance. My father continued, Medicare doesn't cover everything. I listened to them list everything they'd lost, waiting for an actual apology. It never came. There was no, we're sorry we hurt you, or we were wrong to mock you. Just a catalog of their hardships and implied blame that I had caused them. Is that it? I asked when they finally fell silent. We want to make things right, my mother said. We've really suffered, Emily. We've learned our lesson. What lesson would that be? I asked. They exchanged a glance. That we shouldn't have taken you for granted, my father finally said. Translation, they should have been more careful about getting caught. No, I said softly. You haven't learned anything. What do you mean? My mother asked, her voice rising slightly. We came all this way to apologize. No, I cut in. You came all this way to tell me how much you've suffered without my money. Not once have you acknowledged how your betrayal made me feel. We said we're sorry, my father protested. For getting caught, I said. Maybe not for what you did. I took a deep breath. In the past 6 months, I've thought a lot about what a healthy family looks like. It's not this. Not treating your child like an ATM and mocking her behind her back. My mother's expression stiffened. So, you're just going to keep punishing us over a few jokes? This isn't punishment, I replied firmly. This is me protecting myself from people who've shown they don't have my best interests at heart. We're your parents, my father said, as though that should explain everything. And I was your daughter, not your personal bank, I shot back, moving toward the door and opening it. I wish you both well, I really do. I hope you manage to live comfortably within your means, but I can't be part of your lives anymore. You can't mean that, my mother whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. We need you. That's the problem, I said, shaking my head. You don't need me, you need what I can give you. There's a big difference. My father stood up, his earlier remorse replaced with anger. So that's it? After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Dad, besides take and take? He had no response. As they started to leave, my mother glanced back. You'll regret this, Emily. Family is all you have in the end. I shook my head. No, Mom. Family is supposed to be the people who love you unconditionally. I've built that family with my friends. What you offered was just a transaction. I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to their footsteps fade as they walked down the path. I thought I would feel guilt or sorrow, but instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The ATM was permanently closed, and for the first time in my adult life, I was truly free.